Hey everybody, it's PJ from .FL and Karma Airguns, and you're watching this video today most likely because you're either trying to do some maintenance on your Red Panda that involves some part swaps or upgrades or something along those lines, or you're moving from a 2024 Spec Red Panda to a 2025 Spec Red Panda. So this is what I'd throw out to you. Before you do any wrenching on your airgun, please watch all of the videos. There is kind of a sequence to them, and what we want to make sure that you're absolutely understanding is how important it is to degas your airgun before you do any of the part removal that we're talking about in this series of airguns. If your airgun is under pressure, you run the risk of damaging the airgun and possibly injuring yourself or someone else. So if you have questions about how to degas the airgun, I've already done it on the gun that we're going to be working with. Go back to the first video. That's the one where we talk about the degassing procedure. So make sure you've checked that out. Now on to the show. Now we're at the action of the gun itself. And let me explain just a little bit on why we had to disassemble the entire front end as well as the entire rear end. If you want to replace or inspect the valve poppet, which kind of looks like that, you have to take off the front end and remove this plug. If you want to replace the hammer or the hammer spring, or adjust the tightness with which the hammer spring adjuster turns, or the valve seat or the valve body, we need to access the airgun through the back end. So that's why we have to strip off front and back. So let's get into what we need to do here. For no particular reason, I'm going to start with this screw here on the front. This is a 5mm Allen. I should warn you that this is sprung, so as you get out, you may want to slow down. It's not like going to fly across the room and hit the cat kind of sprung, though that might be amusing in some cases, but it is under some spring tension. So take that guy out. See threads on there, and then inside here you'll see this spring, and the valve poppet. So for right now, I'm just going to set these aside. So we're going to turn our attention to removing the trigger guard, which has two 3mm screws. I'm going to try and leave those guys in there because I'm going to be putting this back on in pretty short order, and it's just easier if I don't have to chase them around. And then inside this hole right here is another 3mm. This one's a grub screw, and that has to come out so that we can get at that valve body. So I'm going to set this right next to that poppet. I'm going to flip around to the back end. You need a 22mm wrench for this, just to get it started. So I'm going to loosen that, and then I'm going to turn this over. And here is your hammer spring indicator. In this case, this one is slotted. So I'm actually going to just wind this back a little bit. That's going to relax that spring. And then I'm going to unscrew this little guy. And this is one of those tiny ones that can easily get lost and not easily replaced. So I want to make sure that goes there. And then can usually do this by hand. Every once in a while you get a little bit of gunk in the threads and you have to pull the wrench back out, but should be fairly easy. All right, so we take this guy out and set it aside, pull the hammer spring out. In my case, I'm going to be replacing that. So once I have the hammer spring adjuster out and the safety in the fire position, I can do a combination of pulling the cocking lever back and pulling the trigger, and that will move the hammer into a position to come out. I'm going to, in the next video, be replacing this hammer. So I'm going to set it off to the side with the spring that I'm not going to use anymore. And there is one last thing that we need to do. So if you see the little brass thing in there, and if you can't and you're doing this work, you'll be able to see the little brass thing on your action. That's the valve seat, and we're going to pop that out. It comes in from this side, but you can just barely see it in there. And again, if you can't in the video, I apologize, but you'll be able to see it in real life. And the easiest way to do this is take a suitably lengthened Allen wrench, look in from the top, line the tip of the Allen to the bottom of that seat, push it forward, and then that will drop out. So we now have fully disassembled the action, and in the next video we will start putting her back together.